Hey, Grievers and Groovers. How's it going? Happy Wednesday, March 28th. It's good to see you. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to tune in. Talking about death and grief today, as always. And I want to know where you're going to be tuning in from. I want to know if you can see and hear me okay, because I've been having some technical difficulties today with the internet. I have a lot of stuff to talk about today, and I'm excited to hear from you guys. It's going to be Easter this weekend, which, I mean, isn't that in like deep April instead of on April Fool's Day? It's on April Fool's Day this year, April 1st. Yeah, I haven't even thought about it. You know, my friend said, "Oh, are you going to be cooking something special for Easter dinner?" I was just like, I don't know. Hey, Dawn, how's it going? Dawn from Ohio. I'm wearing my Dayton, Ohio shirt today. I can't remember if I was wearing it last week, but I have about 4 t-shirts in heavy rotation, so forgive me. But as my mom used to say, I'm so forgetful I could hide my own Easter eggs. So it's a mom joke and an Easter joke all together. And it's true. I can't remember what I wore last week on this day. It doesn't really matter. I know you guys won't tell. So we're going to talk about Easter coming up. We're going to talk about the Garry Shandling documentary on HBO. Have any of you guys seen this? It literally was on Monday and Tuesday night, so it's probably a little fresh because I know a lot of people, you know, wait and watch stuff on the weekends and, you know, because their lives are so busy. But I cannot recommend this 2-part documentary enough. It's on HBO, and it's produced and or it's directed by Judd Apatow, who obviously did 40-Year-Old Virgin and, you know, Superbad and This Is 40 and all these hilarious movies. And he was Garry Shandling's close friend and worked for him, with him for years. And basically Garry gave Judd his start in show business in a way. But here's why I think it's so important to watch this documentary. I was so moved. It is all about death and grief and how grief, especially early on, can impact your life and send you in a trajectory that's different than you perhaps had anticipated, or maybe subconsciously it's guided you to a certain place. And it's just all in the end about love. And you can't ask for more than that. And I wasn't, you know, a huge Garry Shandling fan. I mean, I thought he was funny, and obviously I kind of grew up with him because he was on TV and he hosted The Tonight Show, and Johnny Carson wasn't hosting. And so, you know, and he was on different comedy shows and things like that when I was growing up, but never really thought much about him. But I was riveted by this documentary, really fascinated by it. And I really want you guys to watch it. I found it very inspiring. And who knew that Garry was a seeker? He was on a spiritual quest. And I think it's solely down to the fact that he had an older brother that passed away when he was still young. His older brother had cerebral palsy, I believe, Barry and Garry, which is adorable. And so it really shaped him. And I posted a still from the documentary. I was watching it and then immediately just started weeping, and I paused it and took a picture of it and posted it on Instagram. Basically, the documentary is called The Zen Diaries of Garry Shandling, and it's just based around a lifetime of diaries that Garry Shandling, over 40 years of diaries that Garry Shandling had written throughout his career and adulthood. And I see some of you lurking. Come on and join in. We're just talking about the Garry Shandling documentary, but also bringing me to, what was your first experience of death? And I'll give you guys time to kind of figure it out and, gather your thoughts and post. But, did your parents tell you about death? Did your grandparents teach you about death or sadness or grief? And this is why I want to know. So I was watching the Garry Shandling documentary on HBO last night, the second part, the last part, or Monday night, and had to take a picture of a screenshot of a diary entry that Garry Shandling had written. And it says, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't get it wrong, but I posted this on Instagram. I was so moved by it. Garry Shandling wrote, "I had no one that I recall putting a hand on my shoulder or saying, 'This is death. This is sadness. This is grief.'" When his older brother passed away, one day he was there and the next day he was gone, and the family said nothing. No one acknowledged the elephant in the room, which was grief, sadness, the fact that a member of the family had died. So imagine how crazy making that is, especially if you're a kid. You probably don't feel like you're allowed to talk about it because you don't want to upset your parents. And it just blew me away because I never really thought of being prepared for grief or death, especially as a kid. And so I was wondering what your first experience with death was like. Dawn, what was your first experience with death like? I mean, I grew up in the 70s, so parenting in the 70s was a little different in that there was no magical Brady Bunch family meeting in, Dad Brady's architect lounge, Hey, Dawn. Dawn says, "I had the exact same experience with my grandfather. He just disappeared and we didn't speak about him for a long time." So what was that like? I mean, how can you not acknowledge not only your own pain that you're feeling, and this is for parents too, but just the fact that things have changed. Things are different. And this is why I'm so passionate about Good to Go and spreading the word, because I feel we have got to have a reset on death and grief in this country, in our culture, or just in the world, wherever you're from. But I'll share my first experience with death. My stepdad's mother had passed away, I think when I was 9 or 10. It's very vague. All I remember is I'd only met her a few times, so it was a very kind of removed, detached thing. John says, "You went to a funeral, allowed family to grieve. I was very uncomfortable with death." Not anymore, in all caps. That's good. Dawn says, "I related to Gary's experience in the film." I know, it was crazy. So I went to, when I was little, my mom, I remember taking me to see my stepdad's mom at the funeral home. And I didn't know what death was. I was kind of creeped out. I didn't know what to expect. Nobody prepared anything for me. Nobody said to me, "Oh, we're going to a funeral home. This is what's in a funeral home." Usually when you go in, there's a casket, and sometimes it's open and sometimes it's closed, and it's going to be open tonight. So you can say hi to, Cora, God love her. And so I walked in, and it just, the vibe instantly was quiet and weird and sad and a little dark. And then there was like creepy organ music, it's almost like this stereotypical funeral home greatest hits, let's have this creepy organ music. And obviously everyone was there who loved her and knew her more than me. And but it was just a weird, when you're a kid, it was just a weird feeling. And I wasn't in the door 2 seconds until relatives swooped me up and was taking me towards the casket. I was like, "Oh, what is happening?" And I was just like, "Oh, there's a dead body. This is creepy. Get me the F out of here." And so I the way I remember it, I kind of politely got the hell out of there. And I remember feeling really upset. So I was starting to cry, and I was in the kitchen somewhere. And rather than my mom coming up to me and saying, oh, hey, this is understandable, that was probably a shock, she was just like, I can't take you anywhere. I guess I've sheltered you. I guess I should have, told you about this. And then she drove me home, and was so pissed at me. And all I could think of was like, you're more concerned about being embarrassed in front of other people than you are about me being upset, Hashtag 70s parents. So that was my first experience. And then it was never brought up again. Obviously not until I was way older, because then, my mom and I became really close. She was my best friend. But yeah, so nobody taught me nothing about death. And I think that's the same for the majority of people. Dana says, hi, Dana. In Kentucky, Dana says, I hardly remember my oh my gosh, Dana, I was supposed to call you. Hi, what? Like I said, I could hide my own Easter eggs. Sorry about that. It's been crazy. Dana says, I hardly remember my grandfather. I was 3, but I guess I remember how my mother cried, and I had a teddy bear that my grandparents had given me. And when my mom would punish me, I would grab the teddy bear and run to the room and cry, Granddaddy. Oh, even though I hardly had a memory of him, but I knew that would upset my mom, and it did. So you were defiantly, at the age of 3, saying, I am claiming my grief. But not to make light of it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if people don't talk about it, then it is this taboo, this boogeyman in the room. Hi, Joanna. I would love to know where you're tuning in from. Joanna says, I was in a very fortunate situation of growing up familiar with death and funerals. Interesting. I've never been afraid of death. I attended many funerals as a child and have always felt comfortable with this part of life. Interesting. I've only recently learned how unique this is. I know. I'm just like, this is fascinating. Joanna, who knew? I've only recently learned how unique this is, and I'm so happy to be passing this on to our children. Well, how do you pass it? Oh, you're tuning in from Australia. I love it. Hey. I've only ever been to Sydney. And then I went over to New Zealand and canoed down the Wanganui River, but I really want to go all over Australia. But anyway, we digress. Put the kettle on, Joanna, is what I'm saying to you. But how do you pass that kind of death positive attitude onto your kids? Is it just, this is how, and then how were you taught about it? This is fascinating to me. Most kids usually learn about death or grief firsthand through a pet or a hamster or a fish, a goldfish. I mean, we had a bunch of goldfishes that you'd get at a county fair. You throw a ping pong ball into the bowl and you get it, and then you take it home and it dies like 2 weeks later. We named ours Jaws. It was Jaws, Jaws 1, Jaws 2. Then there was Bubbles, Bubbles 1, Bubbles 2. Very original stuff. And they all had a very unfortunate demise, but there was no kind of, oh, this is what death is. It was just kind of like, oh, they're gone. Let's get another one. I don't know. It was weird. Dawn says, I think I told you before, when one of our pets would die, our parents would take us to Disneyland to get over it. All it did was not allow us to deal with grief and associate Disneyland with death. I'm sorry to laugh, Dawn. I know you've got a sense of humor, so you won't be offended, but just being childless, I relate Disneyland to death. I would rather die than go to Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. But wowzers. Okay, so gosh. So when the parents were like, who wants to go to Disneyland? You guys are like, wait a minute. What the hell's going on? Our number's up. Wow, that is amazing. Dana says, I guess we just knew the fish, turtles, and birds just were never coming back, but really not sure where they went. Well, hello, that's 2018. I was talking to a medium and was like, where are they? Where did all my peeps go? You hear these different things like, oh, your dad's coming through and he's sitting in his favorite chair and he's eating nuts and catching up on the game or whatever. And I'm just like, what kind of place is this? Where is this? I want to know. Don says laugh, yeah. I let cartoonist Carol Lay turn it into a strip in LA Weekly. Oh my gosh, I would love to see that. If you have some kind of way of getting that strip digitally, if you could post it on the Good to Go Facebook page, that would be amazing, Dawn. But no pressure. But yeah, it's so important to talk to your kids and about death, and to just, teach them. And the other thing that really stood out from the Garry Shandling documentary is, when he said, no one took me aside and said, this is death, this is sadness, this is grief. I mean, I still have friends now who have kids who don't really share with their kids the pain that they're going through. And I think that that's something that you should do, because it's upsetting. I had a really sweet person email me a few months ago saying, I've got a relative who's sick. How do I talk to them, about their situation without being sad? I said, you can't. It's sad. Death is sad. Leaving your loved ones and your life is sad, or having that person that you love leave, it's sad. And I think society doesn't tell us that it's okay to be sad about it. We talked last week about, I had that little Post-it note next to my bathroom mirror saying, it's supposed to be sad. It's supposed to hurt, because when you're feeling that heaviness of grief, you just want the pain to go away. It's pain unlike any other pain you've felt, and you just want it to go away. Hi, Kelly. Where are you tuning in from? Kelly shares that my grandmother was the first, 85. My dad was next, 2000, and it took me months to recover. Yes. And my husband was next, who died by suicide 13 years ago. And your girls were 12 and 14, 25-year police officer veteran with PTSD and addiction. It's intense. My mom 4 weeks ago yesterday, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Really does suck. Please give me a reason to carry on. Please, you are gonna get through this, Kelly. It sounds like it's just cumulative grief. When you have a lot of losses, even if they're spaced apart, cumulative grief is basically if you have a lot of losses in a short period of time. But I feel it's if you just have a lot of loss in your life, because you grieve and you think that you've kind of gotten through the first death, and that could be years before, but then another death comes up, and then it's kind of a relapse. So you kind of go back and you're like, okay, and all that unfinished, kind of unresolved feelings and grief comes out. And so you're kind of dealing with, feelings about your grandmother, feelings about your dad, feelings about your husband, so and now with your mom. So it's a lot. And I'm so sorry that you're going through this and you're struggling. It's the worst. But after my dad died, my mom had died, then my granny died, and then my dad died. And I said to my friend, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And he said, you don't have to know. And it just blew my mind, because I like to have a plan. When I first experienced death, it's like, yes, approximately how long will this take? Because I want to get through it and move on with my life and feel normal. I just wanted to feel normal again. But of course, your life has changed and you can't feel normal, but you can have a new normal. So I'm just sending you a big hug. I mean, Kelly, that is rough. But you're going to get through it, and you don't have to know how. You don't have to know how. Don says it was sad to see a family so tormented. Yes, it's so true. Kelly says it's my girls I worry about. Yeah. But again, I don't know. Kids are so resilient, 12 and 14. I mean, that's a tough time. You're going through so many changes with your body and your mind and your hormones. And, you just can't anticipate how you're going to react to something. But just love is going to get you through this. Just love your girls, and know that, let them know that you're going to be there for them, and let them know that it's okay to feel sad. And it's okay for you. I want to give you permission. Anybody grieving who's watching this, you have permission to feel all the feelings. Feel sad, feel angry, feel devastated, feel so heavy and tired that you just want to nap until January. These are all normal things. Joanna says, we have always had very open dialogues with our kids about everything, including death, and have always taken them to funerals with us. I think that's a key thing too, to have that kind of, to witness that kind of closure. My children are 13 and 11 and both spoke at their grandfather's funeral 5 years ago. Wow. And just last week, both spoke at their beloved great-grandmother's funeral. I'm a celebrant and conducted her funeral. Oh, thank you for the work that you do. Where was I? I lost where was I? Oh yes, I'm a celebrant and conducted her funeral. It was difficult, but such an honor for me to conduct it. And I suppose this also contributed to our children being comfortable with death and grief easily. I was raised in a very liberal yet open religious household, and the funerals of our congregation members was just a natural part of life. That's interesting. I didn't grow up in a religious way, so we didn't have that kind of church community. I was never taught to be afraid of death. We were taught that the afterlife was something to look forward to. I see what you're saying. Well, even if, you're, for people who aren't religious or who consider themselves spiritual, that is something to keep in mind, that the afterlife, or, whatever, your soul transitioning to the light, or whatever you believe in. But I think it's really more about your life right now. Obviously, we only have one life on earth, and to make the most of it. And that's to share our love with others. And I loved seeing Garry Shandling kind of torture himself throughout his life, but then he came to some sort of peace where he recognized that that's what we all need to do, is love and forgive. And coming to that kind of acceptance of that is a beautiful thing. Don Cameron says, to Kelly, be honest with the kids and talk about how you feel, even if it's sadness. Yes, I think just being honest with your girls, Kelly, I think that's going to help you. And, maybe come up with creative ways to celebrate your mom. And, when my friend's father died, I had read an article about, and they were young, and the grandkids were young, my friend's kids. And, they said, why not draw something about, hey, what are the crazy things you think grandma's doing in heaven right now? And my grandma, Dorothy, my dad's mom, was a horrible cook. And so if I was a kid and had to draw something of my grandma in heaven doing something, I would say burning toast, not knowing how to boil water, poisoning all of her cloud mates because she could not cook. But yeah, it's just, I think it would be good to encourage your girls to grieve your mom along with you. And then obviously talk about, well, how would you feel if I died? And, this is what I think happens when we die, or what, ask your girls, what do they think happens? And there's, films out there like Coco that you could watch to kind of spur the conversations if it feels too awkward. There's tons of resources online. A couple of them I share on the Good to Go page often. Claire Bidwell Smith is a really amazing resource. She's a friend of mine. She's not paying me to promote her. She's a grief therapist, but she's lived through a lot of grief. And then What's Your Grief is an amazing resource, and that's on Facebook. And they're constantly posting articles to do with grief and death and how to kind of approach that and to navigate loss. So I would definitely recommend those as well. And if any of you guys have any recommendations for Kelly, please share, because I love your contributions and your stories, because they help other people too. And me, I learned so much. Dana says, I have to quote Dr. Phil, but he always says your loved ones would never want you to feel so sad. Yes, they would want you to celebrate their lives and honor them by being as happy and helping others as you can. It's true. It's true. However, even your dead rellies can't take the sad away, even though they wouldn't want you to be sad. When I die, I know for a fact my loved ones will be sad. I don't want them to stay like that forever. I would want them to laugh and enjoy life as I feel I have done. But of course it's going to be sad. You are never going to see those people again. And it's intense. And death is so huge and weird and overwhelming. And, it just explodes your mind, basically. It's hard. Hi, Melanie. It's good to see you. Melanie says, I just got on. That means you're just going to get off. No. I'm going to get off in a few minutes, but not just right now. We're just talking about, what your first experience with death was, and if your parents taught you about grieving or death. And a lovely new tuner-inner, Kelly, unfortunately just experienced the loss of her mom on top of all of these other, losses across her lifetime. So if you could, give Kelly any kind of love and, tips on how to talk to your kids about grief. I think, it's more of an organic thing. I mean, I don't have kids, so please don't traumatize your children on my behalf with my advice. But I would think that if you just share your personal experience and you're having a hard day and just like, you know what? I forgot that I was supposed to take you to practice at 4 o'clock and this or whatever, it's because this is what grief does to you. It clouds your brain. It makes you feel heavy. It definitely ties in a little bit with procrastination. So it's a lot of things to juggle, especially when you're a parent. So Kelly, all of our hearts are going out to you right now. Melanie says, my sister and I have a system. When the time comes, she'll send me the smell of lemons or something to do with lemons as a sign. I love that. And that's a good thing too, Kelly. You could talk to your kids about, well, when I die, these are my favorite things, and this might be a way that I might leave you a sign. Now, who knows if that's even a thing that can be done? I personally believe it is. Other people don't and think it's, oh, you missed that person, so you're reading into the fact that a hummingbird just landed on your head or whatever, but I'm like, no, it's a sign. It's a bit like reading your horoscope. You read your horoscope, and if it has nothing to do with you, you're like, this is stupid, I don't believe it. But then if it's like spot on for that day, you're like, this guy's a genius. He reads my Libra mind. But no, I do believe in signs heavily. And I will give you an example of, it's my mom's birthday tomorrow, and I've been thinking about her a lot. But I don't go through photos every single day. She died 6 years ago, and I don't, go through old journals or letters from her. But a friend of mine is having a birthday, and I was looking for a friend of hers is putting a book together of memories from her friends. And so I was looking for a photo and a memory to share. And I just happened on Facebook. I don't even remember taking a picture of it, but I now when I read it, I was like, oh, I vaguely remember posting that. But it was just it was a card for my 30th birthday. And I'm going to be 50 this year. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and, turning 50 with no family around. It's crazy now looking back on it. But anyway, it was for my 30th birthday, and my mom had sent me a pair of earrings, and one was a moon and one was a star. And she said something like, happy 30th. And I was living in London, and she was in Ohio at the time. And I said, and in the card, it said something like, remember that the moon and the stars are always with you, and don't ever forget your spirituality. I wasn't really spiritual then because I was 30, but I look back on it, I'm like, oh my God, she was psychic. And then I came across a photo, an old photo of when I lived in London, and I zoomed in on it, and I had those earrings on. I mean, I couldn't have looked for a picture with those earrings on if I tried, And so just the fact that I came across both of them, that to me is a sign, Anyway, I could be crazy, but Melanie asked how old she's got 2 girls. If you scroll up earlier, Kelly was saying that she's got 2 girls, I believe 12 and 15. I can't scroll back, but Dana says it's so hard not to mark time, with lost loved ones. At their birthdays, holidays, certain things in nature just triggers the loss again. It's so true. Like, I was so excited to get the holidays, the Christmas holiday, New Year's, Thanksgiving, all that stuff out of the way. Then, I'm like, January, woo! But then the end of January is my dad's birthday. And then, February is Valentine's Day. My mom did all kinds of stuff for me on Valentine's Day. And then March comes, that's her birthday. Then April comes, and that was the month before my dad died. And I just go back to, the smells of spring and things like that. I'm just like, oh yeah, this reminds me of when I saw my dad in April a couple years ago. And I had no idea he would be dead a month later, or, all those things. Now, of course, when May comes up, I'm like, oh, this is the death anniversary. It's just like, I can't have a free month that doesn't remind me of dead people. And that's just life, that's just the way life is. Kelly says, thank you, Dawn. They are adults now. One is following in her dad's footsteps, paramedic and cop. The younger at 26 has fallen into drugs and alcohol. I have no idea how this happened. It's the most painful experience ever. Yeah, that's gotta be tough. My mom just wanted us to know she would be on her next amazing adventure. I love that. Her letter to us about that has been so helpful. She's really living it up. My husband, my girl's dad, on the other hand, is so much more painful. Yeah. Well, when you have a death that isn't so-called natural, when you have suicide or a tragic circumstance, the grief is so much more complicated. And again, there's so many resources online that are going to help you with this. And even though your daughters are grown, it's just one of those things where it's just tough, and then you have all the adult issues and baggage and, maybe regrets and things like that. It's so sad and so difficult and so complicated, but try to have some hope, Kelly, because I do believe that post-traumatic growth is possible when something traumatizing happens. You've heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. There's also post-traumatic growth. And I had interviewed a director of a documentary called Restrepo about troops in Afghanistan, and he was around death every single day. And I asked him, how did you deal with that? And he said he experienced post-traumatic growth, which is just, trying to do your best to grieve in a healthy, positive way, and it grows you as a person. It's, a bit like being broken open. Your heart's broken, but it's broken open, and it allows you to experience life in a richer, sort of more appreciative way with gratitude. Obviously, the death of your mom was just a couple weeks ago, and you're in it, and I think that first year is kind of a blur, that first year of, post someone dying is just so hardcore. You've got all the death duties that you're left with, but I love that your mom looked at death as an amazing adventure and left you a letter to kind of read and to take comfort in. And that's eternal. Those are the kind of things that I treasure, the handwritten cards that my mom sent me. And even though I had to clean out 3 different houses, the thing that really struck me the most was the notes that my mom, my granny, my dad had saved were handwritten notes of thank you from their friends or family members who basically said, I appreciate you. And those notes are obviously, were important to them. And so I encourage people to send notes now, even though, my young people friends are like, it's so cute how you still write stuff down. Like, I'm not fully, digital 100% yet. I still like it old school. And, with Good to Go, that's why I put in the little advanced planning booklet, I put all of the history of your bills and things that need all the death duties and all the questions with that. But I put a history of your joy. I want to know, what were your favorite things, your favorite movies, your favorite travel destinations? What are your thoughts about death? What do you believe happens when we die? What words of comfort are you going to give your loved ones who are mourning your death? And it includes a space to write down what signs I would try to leave you when I'm gone. And like I said, who knows if that's a thing, but why not write it down so at least, your loved ones will keep an eye out and maybe take some comfort in that. We always try to connect with our loved ones who have passed through our favorite things. And because, you miss that physical presence so much. And so that's why I made sure to put a history of your joy in the booklet, as well as a history of your bills and logistics. Melanie says, you're so positive. Thank you for helping us. Love these lives. You're helping those that really need it. Well, thank you. I mean, look, I'm not saying that grief itself is positive or that death is super fun, you guys. Turn that frown upside down. No, it's an ass kicker. And, you're going to have dark days. Trust me. But I'm saying if you can just know that there are people in the world, and I'm one of them, that have managed to grow positively through their grief, I believe that's something that's not really taught to a lot of people. It's just death is horrible, grief is horrible, there's nothing positive, shut up, it's, horrible and, sorrowful and awful. But, I'm a happy, positive person anyway. And I was just going through grief and death and trying to figure out how to navigate that, but I still had a sense of humor. And I, for some reason, I don't know, had the first thought in my head after, I got the phone call that my mom had died. I just thought, I want to go through this in the most positive, healthy way that I can, because this is crazy making. This literally could send me, downtown to get some heroin or something, or to find like negative coping skills, because it's so intense and it's so big. And so I just immersed myself in reading, articles about death and podcasts, listen to podcasts about grieving, and, all of those articles about, things on your deathbed or lessons that you learn from the dying and all these things. And so I tried to just suck it all in as like a deathy sponge, because I just wanted to figure this out. Like, how do you get through it? How do you get through? But you know what? Humans do. I always thought it was cruel. Like, how can you love someone so much and be allowed to be attached and have that huge connection and then have it be taken away? It feels so cruel and unfair, but it's nature. It's, it's happened since the beginning of time. I remember having a conversation with my 95-year-old grandmother a couple months before she died. And she said, I'm not scared to die, but I'm scared that it's going to hurt and I don't want to suffer. And, and of course, that's something to think about. But I totally lost my train of thought. See, you guys, you get me on a roll, I get all passionate, and then suddenly I just space out. I was talking to Granny about death. Yep, it's gone. It just went to that place. You all know where the place is. It happens, especially as you get older. Did I mention I was going to be 50 this year? Did I mention also that at this exact moment, I'm having a hot flash? So if you see me like wiping my face, it's because I feel like sweat is dripping off of me now. Anyway, let's go back. Let's see. Kelly says, post-traumatic growth. Yeah, thank you. Restrepo is life-changing. Everyone should see that documentary. So powerful, right? I mean, it is such a intense documentary. And it just makes you feel so grateful for your life. I mean, and that's the thing too, is that was a huge part of my post-traumatic growth, was having a sense of gratitude with my grief early on. As soon as I found out that my mom dropped dead in her place, I was grateful that she wasn't murdered, that there wasn't some kind of unsolved aspect, that she was home, that she was clothed. she especially would have been like, thank Jesus, I had my clothes on. I mean, isn't that everyone's worst fear, of like passing away on the can, pants around your ankles. But yeah, it's just that gratitude. And after seeing Restrepo, I thought, I am never going to take for granted where I live again. I mean, I can sit here and do a Facebook Live with you guys and know that there's not a sniper that's looking at me from a building or anything like that. You know, it's just your own kind of personal safety is such a gift to have in life. You know, I've got running water. I've got, you know, things can always be worse. And Kelly, I don't know if you'll find this comforting or not, but I mean, I know this is going to sound freaky as hell, but I found a lot of comfort watching Holocaust documentaries. I mean, I'd always been interested in World War II stuff. I think you know, in a past life or something, I was born then, I lived through the 40s. But just knowing that there are much more horrible things going on in the world other than from what I personally am experiencing, you know. And again, when my mom died, I initially thought, and this is just my crazy thought process, I thought, well, Paul McCartney's kids, you know, Linda McCartney died when they were really young. At least I had my mom until I was 44. You know, I felt grateful for that. At least, you know, she wasn't, you know, she didn't die in some horrible accident, you know, that kind of thing. At least she was pretty much at peace. She was 67, which is really young, I think. But you know what? She had a full life and she lived that life happily. So, you know, these are things, if you can just find gratitude in any kind of, you know, situation, that really helps your grief and helps it be a little more positive. Don says, we've been taught these obstacles are a horrible part of life we need to ignore, when in fact they are events to learn and grow from. This is so true. You know, not only do we want to protect our kids from all bad things happening to them, we want to be protected ourselves. I mean, if you think about it, we look as death as a punishment. You know, as soon as you hear somebody dies, you know, let's just say, for example, oh, so-and-so died of lung cancer. Did they smoke? What did they do? What did they do to get punished with an illness and then to be punished by dying? Whereas it's just part of life. So true. It's not a punishment. Melanie says, how long have you been doing the Good to Go packets information? Just basically, you know, my mom died and, you know, I was living a happy life as a freelance TV producer. I was working on press junkets for Restrepo. I was interviewing Academy Award winners. I interviewed Colin Firth, you guys. He was my man. But anyway, you know, my friends joke that I went from VIP to RIP. So I was a freelance TV producer and broadcaster. I did radio for the BBC, things like that. And then my mom died and I was completely overwhelmed with all of the death duties. Sorry if I'm boring any of you. This is old news, but for some people it's new news. And I was completely overwhelmed, underprepared. And I wished that there was an instruction manual to help walk me through it. And there wasn't. So I created one. There were a million questions after my mom died, not only to do with body disposition and obviously funerals. I had to plan 2 life celebrations and in different cities, and what paper did she want an obituary in and what picture, you know, all these things. I put it in this booklet, the Good to Go booklet, and that my friends now call the Cosmic Instruction Manual. But so I just wrote that together as just something to give friends and to give their parents. And I started talking to everybody about, you know, how important it is to get your advanced planning done, because you're left, the grievers left behind or left in chaos, and you have to be a detective. And, you know, I was grappling with my mom, my best friend, my biggest fan, leaving the planet. And then I had to suddenly become this business person. I'm a creative person, you know. I suddenly had to be this business person of, okay, I've got to cancel these bills with no guidance, no password information. Her laptop was locked. I didn't have the password to that, you know, and it wasn't written down anywhere. In other words, my mom was unprepared. And I thought, you know, once I started warning my friends and their parents about, you know, don't go through what my mom just put me through. And even my dad too. I was like, Dad, you've got to, you know, get your shit together. Then they started listening to me, and I thought, oh, I'm effective at bringing this message across. And how can I do this, you know, for a living? And then I just thought of Good to Go. I thought of, let's do it in a party atmosphere. Let's target people while they're young and healthy, even though I have had terminally ill clients and clients in hospice. I feel like I'm blessed because I have an ability to sit with people's pain. It doesn't bother me. I don't feel embarrassed. I don't think, oh, don't cry. I mean, I want to get in. I'm a hippie, as you can see by the peace signs. You know, I want to get in there. I want to give you a hug. I want to do whatever I can to make you feel better. And, you know, but again, I don't even want to make you feel better. I just want to sit with you in it, you know, and know that you're not alone, because I felt like I didn't really have that. So anyway, long story short, decided to do Good to Go and have parties and then sell the departure file, which is a living will, and then the booklet. And 100% it cuts down on the grief that you're going to feel. Because my dad came to a Good to Go party a year before he died. We didn't know he was going to die. He was 72. He was perfectly healthy. I mean, he had had quadruple bypass surgery a few years earlier, but he was healthy. And he got good to go. And I'm telling you right now, when he was in the ICU for 6 days, I didn't have any gut-wrenching questions that I didn't know the answer to. I didn't have to make any gut-wrenching decisions. I knew I was rock solid with everything that my dad wanted because he got good to go. And what a gift. I mean, what a gift. So I was able to process his death so much easier than I did with my mom's death or my granny's death. So that's why I am on a mission to get everybody to get their advanced planning done. I've gone too long. I've gone on too long. But anyway, hey, Amy, I see you. Melanie said, yes, I thought Good to Go had to do with your mom's death, but wasn't sure. Yeah, definitely. So, okay, so I'm going to wrap up. Melanie wants more information, so I'm going to wrap up. So you can purchase the departure file, the Good to Go departure file, on my website, which is goodtogopeace.org. And I'll go ahead and I've already made a video, just like a 3-minute video of what's in the departure file and those kind of things. And so I'll repost that after I log off on the Facebook Live. And please, you guys, I'm going to post it. And if you can share it with your peeps, because it's a National Healthcare Decisions Day on April 16th. And that's coming up just a couple weeks away. And I would love to get the word out. And it's Easter on Sunday. And I say to everybody, when the family is gathered around, you know, it's the perfect time to talk about, you know, death, dying, what your wishes are, what your family's wishes are. And you can say it in a lighthearted way when it's still an abstract concept. While everybody's young and healthy and everyone's having the ham and the scalloped potatoes and the green bean casserole and all the fun Eastery things, or Passover or whatever it is, you know, you can bring it up in a lighthearted way. You could say, hey, I saw this crazy curly-haired hippie lady, you know, yelling at me from a Facebook Live, and you can use that as an in. Or you can say, you know, hey, I just read this article that you can get your ashes flown into space if you wanted to. And, you know, I want to be buried at sea. What do you guys want? You know, or whatever. You can talk about it because people don't talk about it and we're poorer for it. Imagine if you don't say anything to any of your loved ones on the holidays this weekend coming up, and something happens to one of your loved ones and you have to make the decision of what they would have wanted. But you were afraid to bring up the conversation because it was too awkward. How awkward is it going to be when you're standing in the ICU and you literally have your loved one's life in your hands, you know, and you don't know what they would have wanted because you didn't talk to them about it because it was awkward or uncomfortable. So I'm telling you, start the conversation. There's a movement called Start the Conversation. I didn't come up with that. Anyway, Amy says, hi, Amy, hi. Yes, I'm going to post the video. So what do we got? We have the Zen Diaries of Garry Shandling. Check it out. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. I feel not only of friendship and, you know, how Gary's friends were grieving his loss and who reflect on a life well lived, which is just sharing your love with others and being a mentor to others. It's on HBO. Try to catch it if you can. And then visit me over on Instagram, which is Good to Go Peace, because I posted a couple other stills from the Garry Shandling documentary as well. The holidays are this weekend, so please be safe and enjoy them with your family and loved ones and talk about advanced planning And of course, happy birthday to my Meemaw tomorrow. I don't know how old she would be. 73 she would have been tomorrow, which is crazy. And then I'll just leave you this one last griefy tip is that, and I've shared this before, but I'll share it again for the newcomers. What can I remember the tip? No, I do remember it. Whenever I feel really sad and like, oh, I wish my parents were here, or, insert lost loved one's name here. What instantly makes me feel better is, well, wait a minute. That's just me being a little selfish because I wish they were here for me. But do I wish they were here for them with the life that they had, which was aging? Luckily, again, another gratitude moment. Both of my parents lived independently and didn't have to be put into a home. My mom had Parkinson's, and I later realized that she was kind of on the cusp of needing to move somewhere to an assisted living facility, but she had a friend that was really helping her, and she kind of kept it to herself, so I didn't realize quite how much she was suffering. But again, that's gratitude. And I know for a fact that my mom's Parkinson's would have been declining, and more and more of her independence would have been given up, and she would not want to be here. As much as she loved me, she would not want to be here. So I've got to remember that. I've got to remember, like, of course my heart is still broken. It still feels broken. But it's on the mend, and it's been 2 years since my dad died. But again, because after he died, then I still felt all of the, the griefy feelings from my mom and my granny and all of that. So, it's a lot, and we're all going to get through it. And I'm going to see you next week. Happy Easter. Hope that all of your baskets are full, and that may all your beans be jelly and all of your eggs be chocolate and delicious. And I'm sending all of you grievers and groovers out there a huge hug, and see you next week. Every Wednesday, Grievers and Groovers. I'm here on the Good to Go Facebook page live. I don't know what time it is in Australia. I think it's tomorrow in Australia. So we're talking to Joanna from the future. But just sending you guys lots of love. And thank you so much for commenting and just sharing your stories and advice, because it helps. It helps a lot. All right, you guys, don't forget to share your light. I love ya. All right, talk to you later.